Hello everyone, X-Forts here, and welcome back to Chainsaw Man Wednesdays, where today we have episode 7 of the anime and chapter 112 of the manga in part 2 to review and discuss. And I know I say this nearly every week, but the manga lately in part 2, it seems like every single new chapter is the best chapter we've had in recent memory, as Fujimoto continues to, really flesh out this idea he's going for with part 2, and things kind of come full circle in this chapter specifically, and it really connects back to part 1 and even some of the promotional art that Fujimoto released before we even knew who Asamitaka was, as well as episode 7. So this is a bit of an in-between episode. I know it has the Eternity Devil fight in it, as well as the scene, but it's really an in-between episode that's leading us into the Katana Man fight, which it's crazy to think that next week we're going to see Katana Man transform, animated, and I'm thinking about it. I mean, after this, we have Makima's assassination on the train. Oh shit, Arai dies next week, spoiler, sorry. I'm just thinking about ahead in the manga, and either a cliffhanger at the end of the next episode, or at the very end of the next episode, we might even see the Cursed Devil fight, which is super exciting. One of my favorite arcs in the entirety of part 1 is Katana Man. Really love his character, his design, the fight, the train fight. All of it is going to be super sick, and that's going to be the rest of this adaptation. And until we get to, that's crazy that the rest of this anime is going to bring us all the way up to Rize, or at least the movie scene, the movie chapter with Denji and Makima. But anyways, for this week, kind of a light discussion. I don't really have much to say about it. I thought the Eternity Devil was paced better than I was expecting it to. They did add a lot to the fight, and when that insert song from Maximum the Hormone started playing, it like clicked in my head. I had mentioned at the beginning of the core that, yeah, so the Maximum the Hormone song is going to be used as an insert song, and then I kind of forgot about it. And then when this episode started playing, and you hear the, demon in the name of devil, like I was so hyped for that, and I was like, oh shit, this is the moment they're deciding to use Maximum the Hormone. And just the grunginess to it and the riff, it was just hit so hard in the beginning of this episode. So love what they did with the Eternity Devil. Pacing was still really fast, really killed it. Everything was there. And honestly, as my thoughts for the rest of the episode, Himeno is just an absolute baddie, and I would let her completely ruin my life. That's pretty much all I have to say about the rest of it. I guess the ending we can talk about a little bit. I really like this ending in terms of the aesthetics. You got to remember that Chainsaw Man takes place in the 90s. This ending was sort of a huge homage to that, where you had the CRT TV, where it looked like there was like a VHS tape playing in old video games, where it's like a turn-based RPG kind of, and all the characters are interacting. It's all 8-bit and pixelated, so ending was really cool. We got to see pretty much all the women half naked with Makima, Kobene, and Himeno. So yeah, that was a really good ending. I really like that one. And yeah, other than that, Himeno's an absolute bad bitch, and that is going to be my thoughts on episode 7 of the anime. I like what they did with the barf scene, the censor bit. It was a nice little gag, kind of like trolling the audience a little bit, because it's like, Eternity Devil's cool, but really this entire episode was people wanting to see that scene in the kiss, and holy shit, that kiss was extended. That was like a 30-second kiss. Animation was so smooth, but the way that they censored the vomit, it's like, oh, that's funny. Oh, you got us. The thing we wanted to see most is censored, so nice little gag. So that's Chainsaw Man episode 7. I like what Mappa did. It was a fun episode. But this now brings us over to the manga with part 2 and chapter 112, titled Between Cat and Criminal, which is a juicy chapter coming in at 27 pages. God knows how Fujimoto is keeping up with his weekly schedule, as he's been releasing chapters weekly now for 7 weeks now, ever since the core started for the anime. And it's just, we've been getting those 18 and 19 page chapters, which is typical for a weekly magazine, but now just out of nowhere, like no drop in quality. If anything, there's a lot of detailed backgrounds in this chapter as well, and 27 pages, so thank you very much, Fujimoto, always blessing us. So the chapter starts off with Asa returning to school, or at least the scene of the crime. I don't know if their school took a day off or something after this attack, most likely. And initially I thought there was a slight change in the timeline, as I thought that this chapter occurred before the events of the last chapter, as the last chapter was in the nighttime, where we saw Yuko come to Asa's apartment and then she was slaughtered in the nighttime and all that, and I thought that these events were taking place right after Yuko's attack pretty much. But later on in the chapter, we see that Asa has a flashback to meeting Yuko at her apartment, so supposedly this is the next day where we see the rubble and everything. I initially thought that because Asa's standing right over her school uniform weapon, you'd think that that would have been picked up, or she would have grabbed it that same day. But no, Fujimoto just telling us that her sword is broken, just so we don't 10 chapters from now being like, why doesn't she use her uniform sword? That is removed from the story, and she will probably never use it again, because it was the only one uniform that meant a lot to her. And Yura mentions that it was a strong weapon, but more fragile for it. I don't know if that's going to be a rule for all strong weapons, that the stronger a weapon is, the more fragile it is. Probably not, because this was a weapon made out of cloth and cotton, probably just more fragile than a weapon that would be made out of a human. Following this, we have Asa asking herself and Yoru some important questions, which I think is kind of Fujimoto just telling the audience what they should be questioning right now and what's kind of important, and solidifying that timeline a bit of what happened when Asa did pass out and Yuko got big, just bringing more suspicion to that interaction and proposing just some more curiosity for us, the readers, where Asa, says, that devil called me her little sister. What could that mean? We see that Yoru is unfamiliar with this devil, so I still think it's a good possibility that this is a horseman of the apocalypse, but as these chapters go on, it kind of becomes less and less likely, and more so leaning in the side of her being the Justice Devil, or another devil entirely. And Asa says that she hit her head, she can't remember what happened, but whatever happened, or whatever that girl did, brought Yuko back to life and made her really big. And then Asa herself says, could she be the Justice Devil? So a little bit of a sprinkle in there, making us, the readers, a little bit more curious about that devil's true nature. And as a lot of people were already theorizing that she could be the Justice Devil, that is just like another tally in the favor of her being that devil. And speaking of the devil, immediately after Asa asked this question to herself, she redirects her attention and looks forward and sees that character, the Justice Devil Horseman, is staring directly at her. Where we're finally introduced to more cast members, hopefully, which is the Devil Hunting Club, which this character is a part of. And I've been saying it in the past few chapters that I really wish part 2 would start introducing more characters, really start building out this cast and get new dynamics and new relationships and just different people to bounce off throughout these chapters. So it's not just all about Asa, especially now that Yuko's gone. I like Asa and Denji a lot, and Hitofume, and I have a lot of questions about them, and I want to see how things go from there. But I definitely would have liked to see the cast grow in a little bit. And it looks like we're being introduced to just more members and some returning characters from Yuko's attack. We see the one guy in the background that had his eye sliced out. He is still part of the Devil Hunting Club. And we see that this horseman type character, Justice Devil, I really just got to pick a name, so I'm not referring to her as both. So we see that Justice is wearing the cap, and I'm not sure if this is confirming that she was the girl that was wearing the hoodie that was knocked out. Possibly they all looked really similar in that chapter where there was 2 characters. And then that brings into another question. When Yuko picked up the girl with the light hair, I'm a little bit confused on that from a few chapters ago. I don't know which is which, but since she's wearing the same cap as the girl with the hoodie and the katana, and we never saw that girl's face, I'm going to assume that was probably her, and Fujimoto was waiting for the reveal of her eyes in that chapter. But although Justice does appear in this chapter and is one of the more interesting characters that I have a lot of questions about, she doesn't say anything really or talk at all. It's all about this leader of the club, I guess you could call him, with the bandana on, and it's revealed that this guy is a chainsaw man, I guess you could say. What is his name? His name is Haruko Isaume. So he just says he's the president of the club. And then Asa says, since you're part of the Devil Hunting Club, since you're the president, would you know if Chainsaw Man is part of the club? And this guy says, here's your answer. And he lifts up his shirt, and it's revealed that he has a ripcord sticking out of his chest, and he is claiming the title of Chainsaw Man, or making people think he is, I guess. And Asa immediately says, I have more to do today. See you later, Chainsaw Man. She doesn't doubt it at all. She even questions it later in the chapter. She's like, well, he's got the ripcord. He's Chainsaw Man. There's no question to it. So what is going on here with Haruko? If that is his name. Haruka is his name. So class present, has the ripcord, and we were just introduced at the end of the last chapter to this imposter type Chainsaw Man, where there's 2 Chainsaw Men running around causing chaos. And my initial theory was that it was the Chainsaw Man devil, which was the devil birthed out of the fear of Chainsaw Man himself, and could still be a viable theory. I'm holding on to it. I'm not letting it go just yet. But considering the timing, it looks like this character is most likely that second Chainsaw Man that is going around. But there's also a few things here. So let's go through the list and by process of elimination kind of find out what is most likely going on with Haruka. So the first thing I have is that he's either contracted with or he is a hybrid of another devil that just so happens to have a ripcord. I'm putting this one first because it is most likely not, it's bullshit. It's the most unlikely one. And what I mean by that is, maybe he's the gas generator devil or the weed eater devil or the lawnmower devil. Just another devil that maybe he's a hybrid with that would have a ripcord, because we haven't seen him transform yet, and he could just be using this to take the credit of Chainsaw Man. That one's a bit stupid. I'll admit that. So that one out of the question. Just wanted to mention it. Another one is that the ripcord is completely fake. It's just a body modification or a prosthetic or just something he put on so he could get clout within the Devil Hunting Club and lift up his shirt and tell everyone, like, don't tell anyone, but I'm Chainsaw Man and I can't transform in front of you because it will blow my identity. Or maybe he has this big lie that he's holding on to take the credit of Chainsaw Man. Again, this one is very unlikely as well, because in the last chapter we were just introduced to someone who was being an imposter of Chainsaw Man and could transform like him. So most likely I would assume that this character can transform transform and look like Chainsaw Man. So how is he able to do that? And this is the last one we have in the theories here, is that the Justice Devil, or Horseman Girl, has granted Haruka the powers of Chainsaw Man temporarily, somehow, whether this is do with the Justice Devil or whatever the true identity of this devil is. And this is mostly because of her design. As we saw, her earrings, she has these ripcords hanging from her ears. So it would make sense that she's with this clique here, she's hanging out with all of them, that maybe she could temporarily grant people the powers of other devils, if that makes sense. Considering the Weed Eater theory is bullshit, and I don't think this is just like for show. I think he can actually transform. I think that other devil definitely has something to do with this situation here, because Fujimoto is bringing a lot of curiosity to her specifically. And literally in the page right here where he lifts his t-shirt up and we see the ripcord, we can see her in the background with the same exact ripcord attached to her ears. So either it's this devil or it's another devil that's granting people these powers. I'll let you guys decide what devil could possibly grant other devil powers. And the most, I guess, convincing evidence I have for this theory being viable is what happened with Yuko. We know that the Justice Horseman Girl granted Yuko a new ability somehow. She was able to do something that made Yuko get really big. And I guess the Justice Devil can get big. We saw that with in the first chapter where Class Prez, the first Class Prez, sort of expanded in that way. But what if she gave Yuko another devil power, another devil that was bigger, and that's the reason why she got so big? Again, we're still in the dark in that situation. We don't know what that was. We don't know if that had something to do with Asa. But I still think Asa, because she was blanked on that and maybe her memory was erased in some way, I still think what happened off screen there is going to come back relevant, whether it is some sort of offering that Asa made or a contract. That's definitely still relevant, especially because Fujimoto brought attention to it at the beginning of this chapter. But for now, I think that this character is granting people the abilities of Chainsaw Man, or copycat, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Copycat abilities temporarily. And the way that Asa has an interaction with this group, they kind of seem like frenemies, but also, well, Asa didn't outright say like, yes, I'll join the Devil Hunting Club, I'll show up tomorrow. It's implied that they, offered her a spot and they want her in the Devil Hunting Club, so she will meet back up with these guys later. She says like, I'll see you around Chainsaw Man. And she's obviously interested in Chainsaw Man and might want to get close to him for some reconnaissance reasons or something like that. So right now this group seems like frenemies and maybe a minor villain group that we might be fighting in the beginning here. Because this guy did kill Yuko, at least if we're assuming he's the imposter Chainsaw Man. If this guy did kill Yuko, Asa doesn't know about Yuko's death now. I wouldn't think so. But Asa is going to have some serious beef with this guy when she does find out, which will kind of pit her against this whole group here. So the last possibility for this character is that he's simply a red herring. But again, I think that's unlikely because in the last chapter, imposter Chainsaw Man, boom, this guy's got the ripcord, most likely him. So yeah, I like what Fujimoto's doing right here, where he's not outright telling us all the answers, but he's slowly unraveling things and like planting the seeds and really getting our brains working of like, what everyone's motives is. What are these abilities that's being used? Who are these devils' true identities? And he's doing things in a very interesting way where he's sort of messing with the rules of the universe and how we thought things worked and how characters are doing things that we're unfamiliar with. But continuing on with the chapter as Asa goes about her day, Asa actually brings up a point that I didn't even consider, where she's like, hey, Yoro, by the way, you realize we just met Chainsaw Man? Why didn't you fight him? And I thought Yoro was going to come out and have devil vision or be like, oh, he's not the real Chainsaw Man. I saw it coming from a mile away. But it turns out that Yoro is actually, a little sad here. She's having a little bit of a self-reflection and self-doubt and isn't too confident in her abilities here. Because I had mentioned during Yuko's fight, I was like, the War Devil's kind of underwhelming, just turning pencils and rulers and, random crap into weapons that aren't powerful at all. And it turns out Asa's more powerful than Yoro in her current state, having more sentimental value into different objects and humans in the real world. And Yoro sort of realizes that's like, damn, I'm weak. I'm small. I can't do anything. I can't even beat the Justice Devil, or there's someone contracted with the Justice Devil. How could I possibly beat Chainsaw Man? And this is where we get some development, or at least the start of a new arc with Asa and Yoro, and it's Asa seeking for a strong weapon to free herself and to accomplish Yoro's goal as well. So Asa is, of course, but she is very submissive to Yoro in this way, where she will do what she says, because you got to remember the whole situation here is that although Yoro and Asa have become a little closer to each other, they've become a bit more familiar with each other, Asa is not cool with her situation. She will do whatever she can to get this devil out of her body and get her body back, because she even outright states in this chapter that she's still miserable. And since coming in contact with Yoro, she's had nothing but pain and suffering and causing misery to other people. And she realizes that if she just has to turn one more person into a weapon, if she just has to do one more bad thing and create a weapon powerful enough to kill Chainsaw Man, it will solve all of her problems. And Yoro will leave her body, supposedly, that's the promise, I guess, and she will only have to cause misery to one more person to end all of this and really continue to live her life. So she says, I'll do anything to stop it, even turning someone into a weapon. And this is a really cool panel here where Asa's walking and she steps on a chicken here, visually showing us why this is Asa's motivation, because she's having these night terrors and this constant nightmare, and she doesn't like how much pain she's causing for herself and other people, like with the Bucky incident and then with Yuko and this new friend. And this declaration from Asa leads us into the next scene and how she's going to go about creating this weapon. We see her like looking around her home, and her and Yoro having this sort of internal discussion of being like, do you have anything of value, like your school uniform? Do you have another one of those? We could turn your cat into a weapon. And I love how Fujimoto is always respecting the cats. Denji saves the cats, and Asa says, I would rather kill a human than a cat, like straight facts. I love the cats, man. Thank you, Fujimoto, for being a cat man. I love that. What Asa thinks here is that, okay, so I can't use a cat. I don't want to kill my cat, obviously. So she's like, maybe I'll just do a criminal, maybe just a lowlife, someone that deserves to die anyways. And Yoro's like, no, doesn't work that way. It needs to be someone that is still genuinely a good person and also will feel a certain level of guilt, a good amount of guilt towards them to create that strong weapon. So now Asa's forced in this situation where she needs to pick someone. She needs to select a target, someone that she can turn to a weapon that she will feel some level of guilt towards. So she kind of thinks of, okay, if it's not a criminal, what about the lowlives, the losers, the people that will be forgotten, the people that, don't deserve to live, but the people that, are wasting their lives away anyways, or just the world would be better off without, is sort of her perspective going into this. And who does she think of? None other than Denji, who she met a few chapters ago, where she thinks of him as a loser, called him a loser, and just a lowlife. When she's doing some reconnaissance on him, spying on him, and she sees that Denji is picking up cigarette butts and then clearing out the filters and just a little bit of tobacco that's left on him and re-rolling them into new cigarettes and selling them to people as an American brand, being like, hey, I got some like premium cigarettes or something. He's selling them to like homeless people as well. And it looks like, so we know that Denji is just doing this to make money. We're going to discuss Denji's whole financial situation because it doesn't make a lot of sense why he is so broke. Like, he's paying girls to let him use him as a chair, and now he's selling hand-rolled cigarettes to homeless people when Denji should be pretty well off in the story, considering he wasn't completely cut off from the Devil Hunting Bureau. But I also like this dialogue we get from Asa here, where she's thinking about Denji, and she's like, yeah, look at this guy. He's selling cigarettes to homeless people. He's a brat. He's immature. He's not a bad person. He doesn't deserve to die. But she's like, yeah, I could kill this guy. But then she's like, what kind of a person am I, thinking about murdering him because he's not a good person? But it's like, so I like that that recognition from Asa being like, this is just a fucked up situation. And during this whole realization of Asa thinking about how much despair there is in this decision, I like what Yoro says right here, where she says, think of it as a necessary evil to put an end to a nightmare. And after Yoro says this, Asa gets this flashback of Yuko and sort of the pain that she caused that friend. Now she's like, yes, this is an absolute nightmare. And if it's this loser Denji's life who needs to be taken for all of this to end, she's totally okay with that. And then we get this last scene here where Asa approaches Denji, and she's like, hey, can I get your attention? And Denji's like, what are you doing? I'm busy. I know you. He knows Asa doesn't like him, so he's not really trying to be cute or flirty or anything. He's like, I'm a busy guy. I got jobs to do. I got money to make. No, I can't hang out. I'm busy tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that. And then Asa's like, well, would you want to, go on a date with me? And like, I love this scene where Denji's face, he says a date, and he has a little bit of blush on his face, but it's almost like it's impossible for him to say no to this. He knows that this girl doesn't like him. She just rejected him a few chapters ago. And when she approaches him, he's already being off-putting and rude to her. But as soon as she asks him on a date, his personality does a complete 180. And it's like he's just in a trance. And he's just like, yes, I will drop absolutely everything in my life. I don't need to work tomorrow. Yes, I'll go on the date. And it's like, I just love Denji for this. I love his foolishness and his immaturity and his inability from learn from past mistakes, and just how head over heels he is with any girl that will ever provide any interest in him, and how desperate he is, and just how needy and cleany, and I don't know. That's just Denji's character at this point, man. Anyone waiting for him to change, or anyone, thinking he would learn something from Rize or Makima or any of these women that have burned him and lied to him and manipulated him and tore his heart out of his chest, think again. This is Denji. Get used to him. So it's interesting to see that Fujimoto is retreading a similar territory he went with part 1, where we have this femme fatale, female manipulator that wants Denji for ulterior motives, obviously Makima, as well as there was Rize as well. And you can't help but feel bad for Denji. Like, it really is depressing seeing this character where I want him to get his win so bad. And I think this could potentially develop into a real relationship between Asa and Denji. And I think, like, if Fujimoto just goes through this for another 30 chapters where it's Asa and Denji getting close to each other, and then, say for example when they're swimming, she turns him into a weapon, just call back to the Rize scene. But like, if Fujimoto goes down that route again, I might genuinely be a little pissed and be like, okay, we're retreading the same territory for part 1. Denji didn't deserve this. Can we explore some new dynamic here? I would really like if the relationship develops and Asa grows to genuinely like Denji, and now she's like, well, I do really like this guy. I don't want to turn him into a weapon, but now it's a decision of him or me. Do I like him or even love him enough to choose his life over mine, and sort of bring like a real emotional dynamic into it, where it's like she doesn't just want to burn Denji. She has to make a difficult decision about someone she genuinely cares about. And I would really like the story to go down more that route and explore more, and like let Denji and Asa, let's have a fucking shoujo, man. Let's flip this script and turn this into a romance manga now, where they go on this date and they really kick it off. And that would be torturesome if Fujimoto really did that, where like for the next 20 chapters, the story just turned into a full romance manga, but then like it's never addressed, or we never see any of Asa's inner monologue, but we know, the readers, being like, any moment now, the only reason Asa's doing this is to form a connection, get a semblance of guilt, and then turn him into a weapon and save herself. And I mentioned in the beginning of this review how I thought this chapter really brought things full circle from the beginning of part 1, and this right here with Asa wanting to turn Denji into a weapon and getting that connection with him is sort of the I guess main theme of part 2, or the main idea of part 2, because the first promotional images we were shown of part 2 was Asa holding a chainsaw that looked like Denji, like in a little chainsaw form. So I think that was definitely just some foreshadowing and showing us where the things are going to go. And it would be even cooler if these two turned into like a dynamic duo as well. Say they're doing all of this and they're working together. That's where I want part 2 to go, man. I want part 2 to go down this route where Denji and Asa fall in love. She turns him into a weapon. They work together to get Yor out of Asa's body. Denji goes back to normal, and then him and Asa live happily ever after. Dog and chainsaw, bird and war. The two, and they're able to find solace in each other through all the pain and torturing and manipulation they've had throughout their childhood, and torment and all the guilt and just everything. They like, I'm shipping these two, man. I'm shipping these two to the fucking moon. Like, I love these guys together, and I really like, I'm staring at Denji's face right now and how controlled he is by Asa when she asks him on a date, and I just can't help but feel nothing but sadness for this guy. Like, I really, it's kind of hurting me here, and I'm working up this big fantasy in my mind of where I want the story to go. Probably never gonna go that way, but really interesting to see what Fujimoto is doing with part 2. And like I said, I hope it doesn't retread the similar territory of Denji just being betrayed and then having to fight the girl and having to fight Asa. I really want them to like each other, grow, work together to beat potential villains like Justice and another Horseman and Yoru, and then be able to be together at the end. But considering that promotional art from the beginning, I really want to see Asa turn Denji into a weapon, but not permanently, and for him to be able to go back. I think that would just be the most raw moment in like all of Chainsaw Man, if it was Denji and Asa working together in his chainsaw form. And like how is that not perfect for Denji's character? Someone who is like the biggest simp for any girl, literally being able to let a woman use him as a weapon, like a weapon from like Soul Eater, where the characters like can turn into weapons and turn back into humans, something like that. So I think like that works for Denji's character, that works for how the story is going right now. And yeah, that's what I want. Are you listening, Fujimoto? Someone send the video, link it to Fujimoto, timestamp it. Let him know if this doesn't happen. I'll still love him, and he's still one of my favorite manga. It's okay, Fujimoto. Do whatever you want. You're smarter than me. So for now, we're just gonna have to see where part 2 goes with these two going on their date. I think it could be a really funny chapter next on their date if Asa has to like pretend to like Denji or she has to force herself to like him, being like, ugh, I'm really trying to like this guy because the more I like him, the more powerful the weapon be. But Denji is just so insufferable in every way imaginable and so gross and disgusting and immature. It's gonna probably be really hard for her at first to form any sort of connection or have any sort of feelings for this guy, but maybe he'll grow on her, and maybe this will be the beginning of a beautiful friendship and potentially Denji getting a girlfriend, and just like part 2 really kicking off into the stratosphere of peak fiction. Another thing I want to mention kind of is that, you know, this is different from the other women that wanted to use Denji, because they always thought the Chainsaw Devil is what they wanted, and they were never able to recognize Denji. Rize sort of in that way. I need to reread the Rize arc. Honestly, I feel like at the end there was some sort of connection there. She did kind of like him. But in terms of Makima, you know, she never recognized Denji, and she only wanted the Chainsaw Devil. But in this context, Asa, she wants Denji for Denji, but obviously she has her ulterior motives. But it's an interesting take that she has absolutely no idea that he's Chainsaw Man, and she still wants to express an interest in him to betray him. It's almost like Denji is fated in this way to experience these like it's his destiny to be betrayed by women. But it's interesting that she is unaware that he's Chainsaw Man, and once she figures out that he's Chainsaw Man, it's going to just, like, you know, put a monkey wrench into the whole situation. So that's another thing to keep note of, that this is just completely random thing here. So that's just another thing to keep in the back of your mind as these two continue to get to know each other. And honestly, sooner than later, Denji might expose his identity, but then Asa's already under the impression that this other guy's Chainsaw Man, and Denji will have to be like, no, I'm the real Chainsaw Man. How do I prove this? So I think that will probably be a plot point in the future as well. Denji needing to prove his identity. If he needs to prove his identity, just get Kishibe on the phone, get Hitafume. They'll be able to back him up. You know, they're credible sources. I really got myself excited with the whole romance and shoujo element, but I think we have to go through a few more loops before anything like that would form, if that would ever form. So alright guys, let me know what you thought about the chapter. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, if you're not already, and I'll catch you guys next week for more Chainsaw Man and some JoJo stuff coming up, as well as next week we have the new Stone Ocean episodes coming out. So yeah, exciting stuff happening the last few weeks of the year. So alright, thank you guys for watching. I'm out. Peace.